essentially till their time's up.
Why those 3 classes?
I'm sorry?
Why those 3 out of the
They're
5?
the most developed, so they were the farthest along. We started, so the arenas originally started with just the Barbarian and the Wizard, because they were the first kind of 2 classes that we did. Even though we didn't announce them in that order, they were the first 2. And then we added the Witch Doctor actually specifically in preparation for BlizzCon. Oh. And we started to add the Monk, and we found like, oh, we got a lot of work to do. So there were some things that we needed to change for that character, and also some things we needed to. Usually it's more of an adding thing when we add characters. We find that they're insufficient. They don't have the tool set that they need. So we tend to, rather than look at the skills and try and tone them down, instead we look at it and say, what are they missing? And so a lot of the times we end up actually tweaking or adding a lot to the skills, or adding specific PvP skills for the arenas.
Are you going to be balancing it for like an esports type team gameplay, or is it just going to be for casual dueling like you mentioned?
Absolutely not for esports. Okay. StarCraft 2 has that covered.
Right.
We trust them. They've got it taken care of. For us, because PvE is our focus, and we do not want PvP to drive the PvE game, we want it to be the other way around. We're going to accept the fact that it's not going to be an uber balanced game. It's not going to be an esport. But we can also accept, just like Diablo 2 was not, its PvP game was not super balanced. We do feel we can do a lot better than Diablo 2 did. And there were whole classes that were inviable, and we don't want that. But we do understand that there's going to be builds that are better and combos that are better, which is why we're focusing on team-based play, because it smooths over some of those rough edges. If you've got a build that's particularly weak against another build, your teammates can actually help you. So it's not just about, it's not about skill-based, it is about focusing on making the best possible character and the best possible team.
Makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, Jay, another question here. This comes from Gary on Twitter. And Gary, I don't think it's from Asia, but Gary said, will there be support for custom maps or modes within Diablo 3, at least for the PvP arena? Oh, it's from Scotland, actually. All right, so that's good. But yeah, so question, obviously custom maps, big thing in StarCraft 2. People love to make maps. Is that something you're going to allow people to do in Diablo 3 for PvP?
Right now, we don't have any support for custom mods. It's never been a focus of the game, primarily because so much of the game involves randomized content and procedurally generated content. It's not created in a kind of mod-friendly manner. Yep. So we decided to focus more on that than mods. That being said, from a standpoint of allowing people to customize the type of game they're going to play in PvP, there's some desire for that. We know 1v1 battles are not going to be balanced, but people are still going to want to do them.
Yeah.
And so, it's not our goal to say, oh, well, that's not going to be perfectly balanced, so no, you can't do it. We're trying to support everything players want to do, but we haven't determined exactly the method where we're going to do that.
Still decisions to be made.
Yes. Is randomized content going to make is randomized content going to take part in the PvP gameplay at all, or is it going to be a pre-made map with just real players on the
Right now, it's funny, we actually build the maps in kind of the same way we would build randomized content, but we do make preset maps for the arenas. We haven't found a lot of value in making kind of randomized. But we have thought about other modes where we could utilize more randomized content in a PvP manner, and so maybe in the future.
That'd be fun to enter into an arena battlefield and not be exactly sure what's you're going to face.
Or have monsters in it.
Exactly, exactly.
That'd be fun. So are you guys pretty, development of Diablo 3 has been going on for so many years. What is the current state of it? Are you guys sort of, are you content complete and now you're starting to test and balance, or where is the game at right now?
Well, we're getting very close to completing the core features of the game.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean we're done. For Blizzard, that means that we go into serious kind of iteration on all the content that we have. So a lot of it's there, but a lot of it's not good enough. Or doesn't flow well together, or is not as smooth and as accessible as we'd like. Right. And some areas, like in-game, is still something that we're focusing on and trying to figure out exactly what we want to do. So we're definitely pretty far along, but we've still got ways to go. More than halfway done, at least. More than halfway, I guarantee it.
Can you play the game from beginning to end right now? I mean, are you able to play that for years and years?
Yeah, you can play the game from beginning to end right now.
How long has it been like that?
Not very long.
Okay.
So, and some of it is like, I could say, yes, you can play the game, but like you walk in and a boss is like a big dude who just stands there and doesn't move, and you hit him once and it says, congratulations, you killed the boss. And so a lot of that stuff we put in place so that we can see how the game flows, and then we add in the elements later. So when I say we can play through, there are some really rough sections. It's not like it's all 100% done, and,
but hey,
and we're just... But you can actually walk from beginning to end.
All right, well, that's will make some people jealous that you've done that. Jay, hopefully you can stick around for just a second, because right now we are going to go to Chris Metzen. He's going to tell us what makes Diablo as a franchise so unique. Chris?
For the upcoming Diablo release, I've been looking forward to Diablo 3 for a very long time. It's actually it's in many ways my favorite franchise for Blizzard, which sounds crazy because boy do I love me some Warcraft and Starcraft. But I've always felt that Diablo had something very special with its kind of fantastical spin on this clash between this fictional heaven and hell, and the idea of mankind kind of struggling for redemption in the midst of this conflict seems very fertile for storytelling. And I think that innate idea that mankind is caught in the middle and is called on to become, be heroic in a fairly grim setting is very compelling. And this time around, we just decided very early on in the development process to push as resonant a story as we could find. The Diablo gameplay is fairly simplistic. You're clicking like a madman. And through the games we had published before, the storyline doesn't often run all that deep because the demands of gameplay, you want to move quick, you don't want to get caught in a bunch of exposition. So this time around we've talked quite a bit about how to kind of layer in the story and really make the level of player immersion much deeper than in the past without really sacrificing the rate of gameplay. Along the lines of how do we ensure that Blizzard's worlds and stories stay distinct amidst an industry that is getting better and better and better at just telling stories. And when I think about our games and I think about our franchises that are so deeply rooted in archetype, I wonder sometimes that just trying to chase clever, right? Trying to keep up with the Joneses in terms of the hottest new science fiction idea or hook or the best new, fantasy spin on a race or a place. There's always going to be someone down the street that is simply better than you. There's always going to be tough competition. I mean, that's just the nature of creative industries. And I wonder sometimes, I don't know if I'm getting too sentimental in my old age, but, as a dad and things like that, and not being the kid I was, working on this stuff, 17 years ago, I wonder sometimes that it really just comes down to the kind of art you're chasing. And I don't necessarily mean visually, but when you allow, your life experience, your emotionality, your heart to kind of bleed through the ideas, and don't get too bashful about that component of really putting yourself and extending yourself into the stories and the ideas you're chasing. I think that's where we will find our brand of distinction. I think that's part of the way that we will shine, down the line and help to keep our worlds, fresh and distinct through the lens of our own experience.
All right, well, that was Chris Metzen. Jay Wilson, he called it his favorite Blizzard franchise.
Yeah, mine too.
That works out really well.
Chris has always had really good taste, I've thought. He's
Well, Chris
10
brings
out
up
of 10 first.
10 out of 10 for Chris.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he brings up a really good point, though. There's going to be, it's been a while since some people have played Diablo 2. There's some amazingly rich lore and story that you have, and I can only imagine the story that we're going to see in Diablo 3. For new players, do you have a plan in place to try to bring them up to speed with the story and get them prepared for the game before it comes out?
Well, for us, the focus from the beginning has always been to make sure that we make a game that, while it reflects what happened before, it tells its own unique story. So the story for Diablo 3 is fairly self-contained. Now, some of the early aspects of the game actually does have some history and from the previous games. It's why we added systems like the lore books I mentioned earlier, so that we could relay kind of what has come before. But the basic conflict in Diablo is